After a series of sweeping election night victories earlier this month, Democrats are now turning their attention to the 2026 midterms, including in ruby red states like Iowa, where incumbent Senator Joni Ernst announced earlier this year she will not seek re-election. The battle for that open seat is already heating up, with 5 candidates jumping into the Democratic primary. One of those candidates is State Senator Zach Wahls, who gained national attention in 2011 for a viral speech testifying the Iowa State House in support of same-sex marriage, and is sharing his experience of being raised by 2 mothers. And joining me now is Democratic State Senator Zach Wahls of Iowa. He is running for the Senate seat that's currently being held by Senator Joni Ernst. Thank you so much for being here, Senator. You've called yourself a new generation of Democrats, part of a new generation of Democrats. You've also made headlines. You called on Senator Schumer to step down during the shutdown fight. In what ways do you think the Democratic Party needs to change, and why are you the candidate that represents that change?
Ryan, it's great to be here and excited to have the chance to connect today. As we've been traveling all over the state, going back to June when we launched this campaign, we heard from Iowans, whether we're in big cities, small towns, all over the state, about the cost of living crisis, out of control corruption in Washington, D.C. It's crushing working class families, middle class families, retirees. We need folks in the Democratic Party who are going to be laser focused on these issues. That is what this campaign is all about. We need to take our government back from the billionaires, the big corporations that are doing better than ever, so we can actually build an economy that works for us, not just people at the very top. You mentioned that Senator Ernst has seen the strength of our campaign. She actually dropped out of the race just about a week after a poll found us leading her in a head-to-head matchup next November. So we're really excited about the opportunity.
So you talk about finding ways to bring down the cost of living. Do you think Iowans want to see someone who's just going to fight the current administration, or do you need to be work with the administration to try and bring down the cost? Because if you're just fighting and not getting anything done, how does that help?
Yeah, Ryan, it's a great question. What I would say is if the president or Republicans in the Congress put forward ideas that are actually good for the state of Iowa, I will work with anybody to my constituents. It's exactly what I've done in the state Senate and certainly what I would do in the U.S. Senate. But unlike Ashley Hinson, who's been a rubber stamp for an agenda from the White House that has exploded costs in our state, I will stand up to the president when he wants to do things that are bad for our state. And fundamentally, that's what this campaign is all about. Are we going to have somebody who works, whether it's for Chuck Schumer or Donald Trump or the billionaires or the big corporations? Or are we going to have a senator who works for Iowans? And that's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. And I'll tell you, when it comes to Ashley Hinson, not all of your viewers may know she's a MAGA congresswoman from Northeast. It's funny, when she first got into the race back in September, I was saying she's kind of like the Midwestern Marjorie Taylor Greene, but obviously I'm looking for a new comparison these days because MTG looks pretty moderate compared to Ashley Hinson. So I'm open to suggestions.
That's interesting, though, that you describe her as a MAGA congresswoman in somewhat of a negative context, especially because President Trump has been pretty popular in Iowa. He won the state by 13 points. You haven't had a Democratic senator in more than a decade. Why do you think that the Democratic brand could be better this time around? And what are Democrats doing to try and win back what has really been a difficult period of time for you in Iowa politics?
Well, look, I would push back on the characterization of Iowa as ruby red. There's no doubt that the president has had success here over the last 3 presidential elections. We still have a Democratic statewide elected official. We had some very close elections in 2022, even though that was a tough cycle for Democrats here in the state. And we now have multiple competitive U.S. House races, and I would say a very competitive U.S. Senate race. Again, as we've been traveling all over the state, what we've been hearing from people is that whether it's the tariffs that have done huge damage to our state's ag economy, cuts from the Republican budget to things like rural hospitals, to food assistance, people are really unhappy. That's why we've been able to win endorsements, not just from Democrats, but even some independents and Republicans, because people know that this campaign is about putting Iowans first. And anyone who wants to learn more, get involved, can go to our website, zachwahls.com, to see a heck of a lot more about what the campaign is doing.
You mentioned affordability a couple of times already in this interview. It's obviously a major issue for voters heading into 2026. We saw some elections earlier this month. We saw kind of 2 wings of your party that were successful in that pitch. You saw Mayor-elect Mandami in New York, but you had the more moderate approach of the governor-elects Spanberger and Sherrill in New Jersey and Virginia. Where do you rank on that spectrum? Are you more Mondami or more Spamberger?
I'd say, Ryan, is I'm an Iowa Democrat. That means making sure that we have an economy that works both in big cities like, Des Moines or, Iowa City, College Town, where I grew up. I live now next door in a suburban community in Coralville, or in the small towns and rural communities that I represented over in Cedar County and Muscatine County, both pivot counties that Barack Obama carried twice and that then Donald Trump won in 2016, 2020, and 2024. And sometimes people ask me, like, what has been the president's appeal in Iowa? And I would say fundamentally it's that he's been someone who's been able to take on the establishment. Now, if you look at the actual consequences of his policies, it has actually made life a lot harder for people in our state over the last 10 months. And I don't think that there's anything that they're currently putting forward that's actually going to lower costs going forward. So that's I think, the real difference now and why there's a really big opportunity here. People don't like what they're seeing here in Iowa or across the country, and they're ready for a change. We say it's time to rotate the crops.
But it's likely that Republicans are going to try and tie you specifically to Mondami. That's a formula that they've been testing in races all across the country. I mean, do you agree with his message of affordability as the path to affordability, some of the policies that he's promoting? How do you view the pitch that he's making to voters and his plans for New York City?
Yeah, look, again, I don't live in New York. I live in Iowa. We're a very long ways away. But what I did appreciate was that he, had sounds like a productive conversation with President Trump in the White House. And hopefully you'll start to see some things happen that can actually get the cost of living crisis under control, whether you're in Brooklyn, New York or Brooklyn, Iowa. There's certainly, a lot of places all over the country that are feeling the effects of this right now. And that's a big part of why I do think that there's an incredible opportunity here in Iowa. Again, it's going to require a campaign like ours that's laser focused on these issues of affordability, focused on tackling political corruption. We always talk about the need to overturn Citizens United. I support strong term limits, banning congressional stock trading, because there's a link between the broken economy that's working great for people at the very top, but not for middle-class families, and the corruption of our political system. And that's a message that's resonating, not just with Democrats, but with independents and Republicans as well.
Well, as a political reporter that has been to almost all those towns that you name-checked there in Iowa many times, I wish you the best of luck as you travel across your state. State Senator Zach Wahls, thank you so much for joining us. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Ryan. You too.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.